Live. We're live. Hello, everyone. Mike Graham here again today. We are live today from actually not sunny Seattle. So we don't have sunshine today, but we are here and enjoying our talk. So hey, we've got a great guest today, Rand Fishkin. He'll be on with us today, and he's going to be answering anything you want to know, everything you want to know about everything in the world. So. Again, this is this is live. This is for you, get information to get to you. So if you have questions, comments, please leave them in there. Give us a thumbs up. Share this. Let us know how we're doing. Definitely let us know where you're at. I know this is LinkedIn Live is a pretty new tool. So a lot of people watching this for the first time. So that's it. Let's get started, Rand. Thank you very much for being here.
My pleasure, Mike.
Love to hear when you're around. I'm a huge fan, as you know, and I just think you just do it right every step of the way. So I would love to hear short update on like what Sparktaro is doing, how you're doing with that, and I'll kind of let you take it away.
Yeah. So for folks who may not know, I started a company in Seattle, Washington called Moz, which is a software startup, raised about $30 million in VC funding, is doing around maybe $55 or $60 million in revenue these days. I led that company for its first 7 years as a software business and then stepped down a few years ago. I left the company a year ago and started this new one called Sparktaro, which Mike, you kindly mentioned. Sparktaro is also software for marketers, but not in the SEO space like Moz was. Sparktaro is more around kind of marketing strategy and helping people discover get intelligence about their audience, the customers that they want to target and reach. In fact, hopefully helping lots of startups in particular. That was one of our big goals. And it's going well. We're actually just on the verge of sending our beta invites out to our email list, which a lot of people have signed up for. We're doing it sort of oddly. So last year, I think just almost exactly a year ago, we raised $1.3 million in a unique sort of funding round from a bunch of angels. We have a strange structure. We're an LLC that distributes profits rather than kind of the classic venture model of get big and sell or IPO. And our fundraising was primarily to give us a lot of runway, a lot of room to build what we think is going to be exciting software, but we don't know. It's in a new space. It's a new kind of software. It's not something marketers are used to having access to before. So, it's strange in that respect, and we don't know how it's going to land initially. So we wanted to give ourselves a lot of time, and that's kind of what we're doing right now. Just been talking to tons and tons of people, marketers and entrepreneurs, seeing how the software lands with them, how the idea lands with them, and then learning from that, iterating in the product, and we're about to learn a lot more with this beta.
Yeah, so you're close. So what do you think? You're introducing it to obviously beta customers now. What do you think? 3 months, 6 months before you're ready to really launch that thing?
So we are not giving ourselves a timeline. What we're basically saying is, if the beta goes well, if the feedback is good, we're going to launch right away, probably in the next month or two.
Awesome.
If the feedback is more mediocre, and we don't see people coming back and using it again, and we don't see people getting a ton of value from it, we are going to hold off on a launch and basically just keep building until it resonates with those beta customers.
Yeah.
We're just not interested in sort of having a mediocre product launch initially. The MVP model, which I know a lot of entrepreneurs like and have used, is not for us. We don't plan on sort of launching a minimally viable product and then iterating on it and getting better over time. We want to do that behind the scenes and launch something that's truly awesome.
Yeah, and I think that's great the way you do that, right? And one, because you have a following already, which is awesome.
Yeah. And I think that's the big difference, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you are a first-time entrepreneur and you don't have a lot of people who are paying attention to what you do, and your sort of website traffic, your email list is small, I think it's fine to launch publicly when you're a more minimal product. If, on the other hand, you have a lot of brand reputation to spend and lose, you better make sure that launch is awesome.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, definitely so. Well, so can you just briefly touch on that? Because I just think, you are definitely leading the charge with this kind of an alternative way to bring financing, which is, I think, much needed in the startup world. I think too many people just get caught up with like, hey, I need to raise $2 million and that's my goal. You've done it a very different way. Can you kind of just outline that? And you've made them public, which is awesome. You made all the documents public. I mean, all that stuff is just great. So give us a kind of a outline of like just how that's working.
Yeah, so I think the challenge is we won't truly know how it's working until we get, until we start making money or not, right?
Yeah.
But my hope is that the idea behind it is something that catches on. And there are already some other startups that have used the open source documents that we created and made available to folks. And there's a seed fund called Tiny Seed fund run by Rob Walling and Einar Volset. And they basically invest in software as a service companies using the Sparktaro funding model. And Geraldine and I, my wife and I, are investors in Tiny Seed Fund as well. Full disclosure there. The concept behind it is that, classic venture-backed startup is try to raise the seed round, try to raise the Series A, Series B, whatever, right? And essentially, your odds of survival, whatever I think the 4-year, 5-year survival rate is something under 20%, right? So most of the vast majority of companies that raise seed money on the venture path will go under. They won't have a successful exit. Most of them don't even have an exit of any kind. They just shut down. And then the math also gets difficult when you get up into those higher tiers, right? So Moz is a good example of this. It's kind of a very successful private company or a stuck in the middle venture-backed company. Yeah. Right. And so essentially, because of the way Moz raised money, I raised that money, right? So this is my responsibility, my fault. At $55 or $60 million in revenue, growing at 10% year over year, it's not a very interesting business.
Yeah, it's not that sexy.
Yeah, it's not very sexy, right? If you and I owned that company,
that'd be very different. Yeah,
we would be thrilled, right? We would just be like high-fiving.
Exactly, we would totally be excited.
It's in many ways an amazing company that's done remarkable things, right? But it's just not exciting enough for billionaires and the billions in funds that go into venture capital portfolios, and so you're kind of lost on that front. Yeah. This is why I think there needs to be an alternative. There needs to be something between I got an SBA loan or friends and family money and venture capital, and I think that there is a huge opportunity for investors and founders and employees to make a ton of very interesting private businesses that don't have to IPO, that don't have to sell for $100 million plus. Well, $500 million plus. Let's be realistic, right? In order to be interesting to their portfolios, I think that investors conceivably can put money into as I'm putting my money where my mouth is, right? Geraldine and I invested a bunch of our savings, a significant portion of our savings, into Tiny Seed because we believe that this is an exciting way to have a diverse portfolio of companies that, sort of no matter where they land, as long as they survive, they are going to be returning money to the fund and to their investors. I think that's kind of cool. Yeah. I'm a big believer in there is great value in sort of the mid and long tail of the business world. I think that I am not a bet it all on a couple monopolies type of person. I don't really want the U.S. economy to look that way. I don't, I don't want to place bets on, wealth concentration and inequality. I'd much rather see that go to the long tail of companies. I'd rather there were more entrepreneurs who succeeded rather than a few who made billions while everybody else failed. So yeah, that's kind of the model, the idea, both conceptually behind it and sort of, the fundamentals of that working is all the investors own a percentage, a distribution of shares in the LLC, and then they receive that percent of the profits each year, assuming that we're profitable. And we basically, Casey and I, the founders of Sparktaro, can't make more than kind of a base sum, which is set to the Seattle software engineer average, until or unless we pay back the initial 1.3 million. Yeah. So essentially, our investors kind of know that we are strongly incentivized to get them their money back first and then distribute profits thereafter.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and honestly, that's the way you would hope. That's the way everyone's always aligned. It may not always be the case, but we would hope that's the way they're aligned, right? But
yeah, and there's no reason you can't. I think that a lot of entrepreneurs feel stuck in like hey, we have to. Should we just use the classic seed structure? Should we just go with whatever the angel list standard is, or the YC safe note?
Sure.
You can get creative. You have options and opportunities, and investors, that's true too. I wish more people would be more open-minded. I think people get really creative when they start to build their businesses, but somehow we're super non-creative when we start our businesses.
Yeah, especially around that financing, right? We just don't have enough. And as you probably know, I mean, many of us just don't have a lot of experience raising money, so it's just so odd for us. We don't necessarily know. We just like, oh, this is what everyone else does, so this is what I should do, right?
Yeah, and I think that's a big problem. I think that's a big problem in life, in business, in marketing, in startups, in funding. If everybody else is doing it one way, there's usually amazing value in finding your own path.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, exactly. Well, hey, everyone, give us a thumbs up if you're online. Leave us a question. We will answer it right on the fly if you have a question. But yeah, give us any questions, answer, and give us a thumbs up if you're watching. So let's jump into we talked a little bit about before we went on live, but let's talk a bit about the mental toughness that you need and the kind of the ups and downs. I mean, you've went through, obviously your ups and downs in your career. I've done the same. We've had our own paths, but it's never easy, especially when you're, working with this small group of 4 or 5 people. I mean, you're kind of alone at the top sometimes. I mean, give me a kind of, if you could, let's do this. If you could go back in your life and say 15 years and say, I wish I would have known these 2 things about the mental kind of preparedness and just how much it's just as much a mental game as it is, a strategic game, and tell us kind of how you kind of got through that.
Yeah. What would I do differently? So, I mean, the biggest piece of advice I have is I think that never mind founder, but every founder absolutely, and probably every human being should go to therapy. Just you should go to therapy because it will make you better at your job and at living your life and at understanding why you have the feelings and emotions that you do, and at understanding where that stuff comes from, and at being productive in working on yourself. If you are someone who believes in going to the gym and making yourself sort of physically fit, you should believe in therapy and making yourself mentally and emotionally tough and strong and able to weather storms as well. There's literally no difference, right? Those things are exact corollaries. I also believe that there's a strong stigma, right, that still exists, especially among men. It's actually, I think it's stronger in Europe than it is in the United States. So that's at least comforting for Americans, right? That folks are generally more comfortable with therapy here than they are other places. But that is, an hour or a couple hours a week that you will dramatically improve your ability to function at a high level consistently, to be rational, and to manage your emotions in healthy, productive ways rather than really unhealthy, unproductive ways. And I guarantee if you're running a startup and you are not going to therapy, you are doing emotionally unhealthy things. You just might not know what they are.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that probably comes out, in how you treat your team members, in how you treat yourself, in the externalities that you sort of push to the rest of the world, your family, your friends, your loved ones, your spouse or partner, your kids, like they are probably all suffering if you are not managing your own psychology with help.
Yeah, and because it's never easy, right? I mean, there's just so many ups and downs in that environment. It's controlling the chaos, right?
Yeah, and this is not unique to entrepreneurs, right? You need it even more if you're an entrepreneur, because you influence and impact so many other people's lives, your employees and customers and partners and investors and all that kind of thing. But there is no doubt in my mind that this is true for every human being, regardless of entrepreneurship or not, right?
Yeah.
It's not like I say, well, if you're an entrepreneur, you should really go to the gym and get 8 hours of sleep and eat healthy. But if you're not an entrepreneur, then screw it. You don't need to worry about that.
Don't worry about it.
Right. Now, it is absolutely true that if being a successful entrepreneur is something you are interested in rather than just trying and failing, then it's even more important.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just that mental and the fact that a startup it just never ends. It always comes at you. You're never really leaving the job, so to speak, when you're the CEO or founder or co-founder, because it's just part of your life, right?
Yeah.
It is what it is. I mean, every company I've ever started, you live it. It's just part of your life.
Yeah. So, and that can be a wonderful and rewarding experience,
and not so much.
Yeah, and sometimes it can be a really terrifying and terrible experience. And I think that being able to process the ups and downs well and respond well is a skill, right? It's a muscle. You flex it, and if you train it efficiently and effectively during your downtimes, it will serve you well, when you're holding onto that cliff and need to be able to pull yourself up. Yeah. And the opposite is also true. Oh, I've never trained for this. Oh, I'm hanging onto the cliff wall. Well, that's it. I'm falling.
Yeah. I don't know what to do. Yeah, exactly. So let's jump into some of the things that you've just been brilliant at with your the Whiteboard Fridays and the things you've done. Is let's talk some things about content marketing and maybe some tools that you've seen that you like, or just some methods you've learned in the last couple years that have started to work. I mean, content still is king. You still need to produce high quality content. To make yourself seen on the web. Kind of give us, what do you think, Rand? What's kind of your futuristic thing and thoughts about that?
Yeah, so I think I would say that content marketing's heyday was between about 15 years ago and maybe 4 or 5 years ago, right? That if you were extremely good at content marketing during that time period, you could sort of surf the wave of there's not a ton of competition. Yeah. There's a lot of opportunity. Almost every search engine and social network and everything else is built to drive traffic to content that people have created. Now that is not as true, right? And it's becoming less and less true over time. So you can see this with Google answering more and more searches in their own interface and driving less traffic out than they historically did. You can see this with the social networks all concentrating, right? LinkedIn is a great example of this. I'm sure you've seen people put up a post and then they say, and then they make the first comment the link.
Sure.
Because they know that LinkedIn will show the post to fewer people if it contains a link out. Yeah. Because LinkedIn wants to keep you on LinkedIn, right? Twitter wants to keep you on Twitter. Reddit wants to keep you on Reddit. Facebook wants to keep you on Facebook. Instagram wants to keep you on Instagram. TikTok wants to keep you on TikTok. This is true for every single network. Google wants to keep you on Google.
Yeah.
Right? And YouTube wants to keep you on YouTube. True across all these platforms. And so Absolutely. It is getting much more difficult to drive traffic off of these places, meaning I think I might change from content, is primary, or content is king, to leveraging engagement and then benefiting off of that is the new king, right? Essentially, if you can build up across any or all of these platforms, the creation of works, opinions, content, replies, commentary,
Just
dialogue.
Right? Just things of interaction, right?
Yeah. Methods of interaction that serve the network's interest, essentially provide them the engagement that they are looking for on their platform, and then find ways to benefit from that, essentially in terms of branding, in terms of brand recognition and brand memory, brand association, in terms of people cheering for you, people wanting to go deeper and check out what you've done, right?
Yeah.
Wanting to click on your profile from your Instagram page as opposed to just hearting your photo, wanting to go visit your website and search for you after they've seen your YouTube video, wanting to go and sign up for email updates after they see your LinkedIn post, which that's much harder to tie together than it was historically, right? Historically, you put up the post, you shared it across social networks, you got the traffic back there, you could directly see which networks were benefiting you. Now it's a much more second order effect. And I think that's going to be the future of marketing, as frustrating as it might be. The future of successful marketing across all these platforms is creating that engagement, playing the network's bias towards engagement on their own site and benefiting from that.
Yeah, and that's getting harder on everyone's platform, right? I mean, it's
the competition issue is a huge one, right? So the all of the platforms have so many participants on them from every kind of industry. You're competing against a much savvier subset of people, of marketers across all these companies, and you are competing against the broad usage, right? There's just so much usage across all these platforms that there's so much content that could be shown in anyone's feed, right? In anyone's up next on YouTube, in Google search results, in Twitter and LinkedIn and Facebook and Reddit and Instagram. So your competition is just much harder. And then also promotional stuff is getting more and more difficult. So finding unique ways to stand out is hard. If you're great at it, though, there's still tremendous opportunity.
Yeah. If you figured out some unique, cool ways to create that engagement and activity, then you're gonna win, right?
Yeah, and a lot of that is, I think, the things that are working right now. Storytelling is very big, especially if it's emotionally resonant. So not necessarily like, wow, that really helped me and was useful. That does not tend to do as well as, wow, that really tugged at my heartstrings. Wow, that really made me happy, sad, angry. This is why politically motivated and social political issues do so incredibly well across social media, is because those platforms are essentially optimized to take advantage of the angry, conflict-heavy dialogue. Mike, I'm sure you've had this experience, right? Like you put up a post, let's say you tweet something or put up a LinkedIn post, and all the comment replies to the LinkedIn post, the Twitter post, whatever, are very positive. Right? People come in and they're like, great post, Mike. I love this, Mike. This was really great. How many times are you going to hit refresh? I'm serious. Right?
Exactly.
Maybe 2 or 3 times you'll check it out and be like, oh, look at all these nice people who said all these nice things.
Yeah.
Now, imagine that you put up something that gets someone saying, I hate your guts. This is the worst thing I've ever seen.
Sucks.
Screw you. You suck, man. Like, quit. Get your politics out of my freaking feed. Stick to whatever, startups, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
How many times are you going to hit refresh?
Yeah.
So many times.
Yes.
So many times. You are addicted, right? And the engine, the social networks, they know that creates the addiction and engagement that they're looking for. They know they can monetize it. And so they build algorithms that essentially amplify that stuff.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, like it's a train wreck, right? Everybody likes to see a train wreck, right? It's just like, love to see that conflict.
I think there's the train wreck and there's the conflict, right? Yeah. Conflict creates engagement, creates addiction, creates the high levels of coming back again and again, and that's monetizable. So, you can, as a marketer, you can choose to invest in that in healthy ways, and you can choose to play less healthy games that also might work. So it's sort of up to you a little bit.
Yeah, it's like which path you want to go down, right?
Yeah. There's a dark side and a light side you can use this
there's always a dark and light, right, Rand? There's a black and white. There's a little gray down the middle. Let's talk about let's just say that you and I, we started our company, and what are the things that we should do? I call them the blocking and tackling, the 101 stuff, right? What are the basics that we should do from an SEO, just so we set it up so we can build the right foundations, like building a house. Like what foundation pieces should we do first? If we've got a product, we're ready to launch it. Like, what do we need to do first? Let's assume we've got, we've been collecting emails, we've done those kind of things.
Yeah, I think that from an SEO perspective, there are definitely still some block and tackle things that everyone should do. If you have not yet done good keyword research, right, in terms of, okay, these are my customers, here are all the things that they look for when they have the problem that I'm trying to help them solve. Here are all the things they look for before they have that problem. Here's what the customer journey looks like. Here's who they are and what types of things interest them. Now let me create a prioritized list of words and phrases that are searched for and content that is being sought out. And let me see what I should prioritize in terms of what I think will resonate with my audience, resonate with people who amplify content in my industry, and to people that care about these topics. And then let me see how essentially I can tie that to getting more people to my email sign-up list and getting more people to my product pages. From there,
and just a quick question: how do you think that when I say we, us founders, how do you think we're doing in that aspect?
Oh, almost always terrible.
At least we're good. We're consistent.
Yeah. Which is really good news, because you don't have to be that much better to be, you don't have to do that much to stand out from the average startup in this respect. Yeah. Granted, competition is heavy, right? Once a startup moves out of that phase, they move into the growth phase, they get into the, hopefully a high growth phase, and they become dominant, then you are seeing SEO investment be higher than it ever is. And of course, there are more professional search marketers than there ever have been. There's more content marketers than there ever have been. And so that competition is quite high, and breaking into the field is tough. But as a startup, standing out as, from your peers, at least from your early stage peers, is not that difficult, right? You can do a modicum of this stuff and be very successful. I have seen a few startup founders do keyword research before they do product development. That's super smart.
Super awesome, right?
So smart, right? Because then you understand demand and supply, you understand competition, you understand the market just so much better than, I cannot tell you the number of pitch decks I've seen where there was not a single look at Google search volume and search trends and keyword difficulty and relative visibility scores of other sites in the field and Google Trends data looking at seasonality, right? People just, I don't know, for whatever reason, like they just don't think about it. Yeah. And I think that hurts a lot of founders, right? You should do that before you ever think about building your product in your company.
Yeah, I mean, it should be, in that process of developing the customer and the product for the customer, that should be part of the deal. Like, it's just research.
That's right. It is fundamental core audience, product, and market research. And to think of it as anything else is just weird, right? The number of startup founders that I talk to who say like, okay, we've got our product, we've gone out to market, we've got our website built, we're signing up a few customers. Can you help us do SEO? You are way behind the curve, my friend. Exactly. So far behind the curve, right? The fundamentals should be, I understand my market, my audience, I understand what they're searching for and looking for. And now I have built products that are sort of, clearly connected to that. I have built content that's clearly connected to that. I have a way to connect up my content and my product. and here are, the words and phrases that I know can bring us great business, and here's what we're doing on that.
Yeah,
there's a lot of missed opportunity there. I was chatting with a friend of mine, a CEO here in Seattle, actually, of a big and growing startup.
Sure.
And having that conversation around, hey, Rand, do you think we should be investing more in SEO? Because we do really well on PPC. We rank for a lot of the terms that we have in PPC. And I was kind of like, hey, I think that the way that a lot of founders think about search is they say, do these words and phrases bring me customers that directly convert on that one visit?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That is not a smart way to think about search.
Yeah, you've got lots of choices.
Content and search are long, long journeys. And if you are only ranking for words and phrases that bring you customers directly, I promise you a competitor of yours is crushing you at all the words and phrases that people use, which the volume is between 100 and 10,000 times bigger for all the things that they search for before they ever become a customer.
Yeah, all those 4, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 steps before they ever become one, right?
Exactly, right? Nobody goes to Google and types in a new medical device that will help me track my heart rate while I sleep.
Yeah,
that's not how it works.
Yeah,
right. The way it works is, I'm sort of interested in health. I'm interested in fitness. I do a bunch of searches around this. I start to read content around things that are good for me and bad for me. I do some searches around particular conditions. Whatever it is, right? And then I discover, this device exists, and then I search for the brand name of the device.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you're a startup and all you're targeting is the generic high conversion, high commercial intent terms, you miss out on all of that journey.
Yeah, and it's the journey, right? That customer journey it's sometimes long, it's sometimes short, but there is a journey.
It is sometimes short, but I think when it is short, it's really tough to compete, right? When it's short, it's like, I just need paper towels. I'll just order them from Amazon. Exactly. Like you don't have a lot of opportunity there. Most of the time, most startups are targeting long journey, considered purchases that require branding, that require a journey to change people's behavior and minds.
Yeah, well,
and frankly, that is not, unfortunately, how most founders and entrepreneurs invest in search marketing.
Yeah, because it's just a process, right? And it's different for every product, but it's always a process. It's never 1, 2, 3, buy.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, definitely not. Well, tell us like what are some? You're deep into the marketing world. Are there any cool tools that you've used in the last 6 months or anything that you thought, hey, you know what? These are pretty cool. I mean, these are really helpful.
Gosh, yeah, I would say I've been a little less tool focused of late, other than Sparktaro, trying to build this thing that I'm doing.
Build your own tool. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. I have been impressed with some of the leaps forward on some SEO stuff. So I occasionally watch that field a little bit just because of my historic connection to Moz. I think Moz itself has made a bunch of upgrades, mostly to their sort of pro suite with Link Explorer and Keyword Explorer. And those are Keyword Explorer is like the big tool that I use for all my keyword research when I'm helping folks out or doing stuff for Sparktaro.
Yeah.
I have also been impressed with Screaming Frog has made some really impressive updates that I think are great. Google Search Console has made some frustrating updates the last couple of years that make that less interesting than it's ever been to me. I think I literally haven't logged into Search Console maybe once every 6 months for the last year and a half because it's just not useful. It doesn't tell me anything that I really want to know. And that that's just the way it goes. I know some folks rely on it, and I don't think that's a very good idea, to be honest. I think that you can get much better data from third parties. The another tool that I've really admired, and I think a lot of folks in the content marketing, search marketing field have been using and coming around to, is BuzzSumo. That's just a super powered, what content has performed really well using particular words and phrases, and that can give you a sense of kind of what's resonating with amplification likely audiences, what's working in a field, what's not. And I think learning from that and mimicking those can be very useful.
Yeah, I mean, because you can just see that the content that's popular, right, based on certain platforms. I mean, it's super helpful, especially if you're trying to, like, what do I write about? Well,
I think that the challenge becomes it can be a bit limiting in terms of creativity to only rely on examples of what other people have done. But if you can move past that and sort of look at the broader trend of, I see that by serving this set of interests, or by tapping into these kinds of emotions that are going on in the field, or these kinds of like concerns that people are worried about, I now see what kinds of content can work well, and I can be creative and invent my own stuff that's going to do well.
No, I'd agree. Hey, everyone, give us thumbs up if you're online still. Leave any questions you want. We'll happy to answer those on the fly. We're just here talking about marketing and startups, so feel free to leave any questions. We'll, like I said, we'll answer them even after this is live and it's been recorded. We'll answer some questions on it as well. So feel free to leave them in the comments. So hey, let's talk about like if if we're starting a company, what are the first 6 months look like to you? Like, because you've done it a couple times. I mean, and you've been helping people. I know, as a mentor, advisor for several years. I know, helped several companies. So, what are things that you kind of help people kind of stay on top of that first, 3, 4, 5, 6 months when it's what I say is just the critical time. I mean, simple decisions sometimes become huge, and you don't know that when you're making them. And what are some things that you can kind of help a early founder like focus on in those early days?
I mean, I think there's a few things that matter most of all, right? The kind of funding that you take or that you go towards will determine what success can be, right? So if you take no funding, success is we're profitable, right? We make more money than we spend. If you take angel funding or sort of alternative kinds of funding, again, being profitable is all you really need to do. As long as you survive and are profitable, you can grow at nearly any rate and be fine, right? As long as you can cover your expenses and grow a little bit, you're doing great. You can build a wonderful business. If, however, you raise institutional money or angel financing that is intent upon a future institutional round, that's not true, right? Then success has to look extraordinarily different. Then it is, how do we get to 100 million plus users or $100 million plus in revenue or near there annually in order to build the kind of business that our investors expect. And so I think that is at the core. That's like the biggest decision that you will make, because it dictates everything else, right? What kinds of growth. How you operate, how you hire, how you find everything for the future. Second big thing is who you choose to work with, your co-founder or co-founders and your early employees. And I may be, I'm a little biased in this regard. I think that you should generally seek out people who share your value system, and that means you have to define your values, and people who come from diverse backgrounds, right? So that probably means it should not just be, a bunch of people who look like you and I, Mike, right?
Yeah, exactly. A bunch of white guys in the
right. Like, but you do want people who share your values. So if you have a deep belief in kindness, or if you have a deep belief in, I don't know, moving fast and breaking things, or if you have a deep belief in transparency, or a deep belief in being very frugal, you should find people who generally share those values. If at the core level you don't agree on values, everything else kind of flows from that, and there'll always be very high conflict.
Yeah.
Every decision will piss someone off. So I would urge folks to generally concentrate on that.
Yeah.
Third thing is the audience that you choose to build your product for. I think that is even more important than at least as important as the product itself. Some audiences
So Rand, you're choosing the audience. Say that again. So the audience you choose to, right?
Right. The audience you are choosing, essentially the customer set that you are choosing to serve first.
Yes.
I think that is crucially important. Many folks, many startups that I talk to basically target audiences that are not very open to new things, to changing their protocols. They don't have an incentive to change the way they operate, the way they work, the things that they buy.
Yeah.
And I find that when startups instead find audiences that are looking for something new, they are fundamentally unsatisfied, unhappy. They they need this new product, or they're very open to new products. You generally do better. It's also much easier in the B2B world, at least, to find customer sets that pay attention regularly to like news and information, right? So if you
trade information, industry information.
Yeah, they're the kinds of people who go to conferences and events. They're the kinds of people who follow social media accounts in their field to learn more. They subscribe to whatever, blogs and trade journals and industry information, as opposed to industries where they're like very sealed off. Education is like this.
Yeah.
Education, there's almost no sort of education, at least primary education, administrative staff that like pays attention to a lot of industry stuff. There's not like, there's a bunch of big podcasts and there's a bunch of conferences and events.
Yeah.
It's not that there are none. It's just a limited set compared to, for example, web marketers, right? Commercial fishermen.
Not a lot.
Not a lot. Real tough, like very hard, right? Geologists who do engineering work, it's tough, right? As opposed to professionals in the economic sphere, right? Like professional economists, that there's a ton of stuff they pay attention to. They're constantly having these, online conversations. They're influential people in publications all over the place. I find that it's much easier to, if you're creating a product for those kinds of audiences that are already paying attention to what's going on, you just have a way easier time amplifying your release. Yeah. But that being said, look, if you have a great way to reach that hard to reach audience, some unique advantage, that can be awesome, because then no other company can compete with you, right? No other startup can, we have a relationship with the USGS and the few geology conferences and events and publications that are read by geologists, and so we think we can create a product and actually get some market traction where nobody else could. Okay, awesome. Great. Just make sure you've got that. I think those three are the big ones that I would mention.
Yeah, I would echo that diversity part of it is just getting different, I call them just different inputs from different types of people, backgrounds, cultures, all those things.
Experiences,
experiences. The diversity just creates such a better product. I mean, whether you live in Boise or Albuquerque or Paris or, Australia, I mean, they just give us different experiences and viewpoints and create better products, right? It's just...
Absolutely. Well, and you broaden the audience that you can reach, right? If you only have people like you working for and with you, guess who you're going to make products for?
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
You shrink your audience dramatically, and there is not a singular dominant culture. I think probably 60 years ago in the United States, you could say like, okay, there's a single sort of dominant monoculture in the business world. We really only have to target that. That is so not true today.
Not today at all. Yeah. There's just so much diversity, and you literally can live here and sell to another market and never even sell here in the US. I mean, there's lots of choices and how you want to create that product. Yeah.
And I think that's another like cheat code is if you can target a market that your competitors cannot, right? Like, oh, we have, folks from South America and Central America who are native Spanish speakers and understand that culture and audience really well, and we're going to make a product for them. Ooh, that is sexy, man. Right? Like, there's a huge percent of Americans who Spanish is their first language. There's a small percent of Americans for whom that is their only language.
Yeah.
And there are not a lot of startup founders building stuff for them, right? So you've got a big advantage there. This is another reason I mentioned that Geraldine and I are investors in Tiny Seed. The other fund we invested a small amount in was Backstage Capital.
Oh, sure. Right? Yeah, very diverse.
Yeah. So Arlen Hamilton runs that fund, and her mission is sort of like, generally speaking, mostly funding Black women entrepreneurs, right? Entrepreneurs of color, but also women of color primarily. And I mean, I've had some calls with some of the portfolio companies there, and like they're doing fascinating stuff. They're targeting markets that I was previously unfamiliar with, hadn't really considered and thought about. Folks with a lot of economic opportunity, but historically have just not received any kind of funding.
Yeah, and some of these segments haven't been marketed to. They literally haven't been marketed to.
Ooh, and that's just what an awesome thing to be able to compete on, right? Is basically these underinvested in segments where your competition is so much lower and your opportunities as a result, so not just bigger, but so much easier to come by because you're not competing against the same 10, 15 incumbents as everybody else.
Yeah, you don't have the Apples and the Microsofts and all these companies going after that segment. It's just which is awesome. Well, Loren, do you have anything else you want to share? I mean, anything else you want to let us know? That anything exciting? I just gotta give you the great plug. This is an awesome book. So
thanks, man.
Yeah, it's an awesome book. I quite enjoy it. It's great. It's just an awesome, truly authentic read about how to be a founder. So good job, man.
Oh, thank you.
Thank
you, Mike. And thank you for having me on the show, and look forward to helping out more entrepreneurs in the future.
Yeah, no worries. Well, you take care. Good luck with Sparktaro. And just keep doing the great work. You're awesome.
Right. Thanks, man.
Okay, man.
Cheers.
Be safe.
You
Take
too.
care.
Bye.
Okay, everyone. That's it for today. Until Thursday. Like I said, leave comments, thumbs up, give me all that stuff, and we'll finish it off today. Take care, and we'll see you on Thursday. Bye-bye. Have an amazing day.